I'm Will Zens. Actually, my name is Frederick Willard Zens. My mother and dad said, call you Will, a lot easier, which I decided to do. So I was born way back in 1920 when Milwaukee was just about starting out. We lived in a small neighborhood, and after 5 years I moved to a bigger neighborhood with a nice home, a two-story home my folks were living in. And we was 1 block away from another street which was more livelier. I lived on 41st Street, but they weren't going to call the next street 42nd. They called it Grand Avenue. Beautiful homes on it. So beautiful homes, I was looking at the people, the boys and the girls who were in my grade school. I loved it. In fact, one of the men in that home had a grandfather who was cutting hair on Grand Avenue, cutting hair for kids. Only cost a quarter. My folks could give me a quarter and go over and get a haircut for a quarter. Pretty soon I had to get ready to go to high school. My grade school was all girls and boys, and I learned to play the piano there. Nuns taught me how to play the piano. But I went to the high school, the boys' high school. It's called Marquette University High School, and did a lot of good things there. I never played in the teams anywhere, but I sure did a lot of work in the high school. And I learned how to play a piano accordion there. I did other things that was meant for kids my age, and we all loved it. So after 4 years of high school, I said, now it's time to go to college. And I went back to Marquette University.
What year was that?
That was way back in 1938 that I went to Marquette University. And then I stayed there, and by that time my war was beginning to go in Europe, and pretty soon it came to the United States. December 7, 1941. I was home, on radio. They didn't have television in those days, but radio, we said, there's a war going on. We're starting it right here in the United States because we're going to enter the war with all of our people. We're all going to go to Europe and fight the war. To get in, first of all, I got drafted. And I said, gee whiz, they're going to draft me? Well, they did draft me. I wanted to get in the Air Force badly. And I went to my dentist, sir, I want to get in the Air Force. So, you can't get in the Air Force, why? Your teeth are too bad. I can't get into the Air Force? Well, he was wrong. I got right into the Air Force beautifully. As a pilot, as an aviation cadet, I again, we call it basic training, advanced training, until it finally got to me, he said, well, sir, you are now going to be a commissioned officer because you won your wings. They handed me my wings, and I put them on, and a new set of clothing to wear, and I became an officer at that time. That was way back in December 1942. My wife was in Milwaukee as a lady, and we'd be on the phone a lot, talking to each other, letters and everything like that, till finally said, honey, I got the wings. And she came down to Florida, where did I get them? In Texas, where I got my wings. She came down there and said, honey, we're going to get married. What? Yes, we got to get married. So we got married a couple of days after that in Texas, Lubbock, Texas, at the Army Air Force Chapel. As a test pilot, right away, I was assigned to different places here in the United States. And I said, how's it going to happen? What's going to happen to me now? I'm flying a lot. I was flying a lot of different airplanes. That, sir, we need you in Europe badly. There's a lot of jobs for you as a pilot, a test pilot and everything. You got to go to Europe. So after 6 months marriage in the United States, later in June of 1943, I went over to Europe. We thought as a pilots we could fly over there, but no, they said, sir, you got to take a ship, get across. A ship? Yes, you go to New York, and there's a ship waiting for you over there. And what airplane is it? It's the Queen Mary. Queen Mary? That big ship is taking me? Yes, sir, you're going to get on board the Queen Mary with a lot of other troops, officers, and enlisted personnel. I said, wow, gee whiz. One of the amazing things happened to me when I got on board ships is, you're an officer, you got to come down to our formal dining room. A formal dining room? Yes, sir. Got to dress formally, eat around a table with all the goodies on it. The enlisted personnel got to sit in their own little place, eat the way they ate all the time. But you are, as an officer, sit well with all the other officers under top quality of management here. The ship was amazing to us. We knew that it existed, but we were amazing to find out that that ship was going to carry us over to Europe. And it did that. It took us about 6 days to cross the Atlantic Ocean from New York and get off near Ireland there, and then we could dock down. So a nice way to go, 5, 6 days to get across that Atlantic Ocean. But luckily there were no other planes. We see planes overhead, but it'd be our own planes. Nothing from Germany out there to bomb us, no sir. The ship was crowded, whatever it was, with all enlisted personnel and the officers and the pilots. As in England, as a pilot, I had no primary function, just a pilot, but a lot of different types of jobs to do. Whether different airplanes to fly, I said, a test pilot, transport pilot, ferry pilot, took all of them. So the airplane would come in and they said, we have to rebuild this. It got shot down, or Germans bombarded it while it was sitting on the ground there, and we had to rebuild the airplane, and as a test pilot, make sure it was fly properly, because that's the only way they could do it. A test pilot could do it. They wouldn't not going to get a regular fighter pilot do it. A test pilot had to get that airplane working properly. My wife became pregnant before I had gone to Europe. So I said, gee whiz, honey, when are they going to have the baby? So I don't know yet. Well, I had to go to Europe with her. I said, honey, please let me know when I get over to England. They put me in there. Pretty soon I got a phone call from the chaplain and said, sir, your wife just gave birth to a little girl, a little baby girl. Yes, I know her name. We decided on it's going to be Antoinette Louise. So we call her Tony Lou. So we did that. And then kept on flying. We write each other back and forth. I couldn't telephone because this didn't have that available. But one time too, I got another call from the chaplain. Sir, I have to tell you something. Your baby daughter died. What? Chaplain, yes. She's only a month and a half old, that's all. She died? Yes, sir, I can't say. We're all praying for her and sorry for you. You just aren't able to go to the United States and see her. Amazing that I would hear something that my little baby daughter died. Nothing I could do about it. All I could do is my own private prayers, and the chaplain would join me in some of those things like that. Odd things happen too, because here's another thing that in Milwaukee, where I lived near a cousin of mine, and not too far away, but when I got to England, he was over there too. He was in charge of an airport. He was a flying master there, and there he was. I would visit my cousin back and forth, back and forth. I'd fly to his place. Sometimes I'd take him up on an airplane ride. He was not a pilot, but he loved that. He was an officer in charge. Loved me to take him for airplane rides in some of the airplanes I had to test. In England, I had to go to the eastern part of England, all the way just before you get to the Gulf leads over to France. But that's where it had me stationed there for a while, to do a lot of flight training, practice other airplanes, move people around all over Europe. I kept flying all the time until they finally said, sir, we got to get you over to your England now. I mean, over to France. D-Day. I was sitting there in Europe at the time, in England on D-Day. I remember the guys had to get dressed and get ready to take a ship. They all had to go over by boats, ships. they couldn't fly over there because we did not ourselves had taken over from the Germans an airport to land at. D-Day was in June, and I got over there in July. I had to get over by ship, not by an airplane. So all I could do was get on the ship and put us in little rowboats and get onto shore, two with our all dressed as a combat people, but not as a pilot. So get us on ship, get on shore. We were given a shovel to dig something long for us to get the foxholes to land there because the Germans were still out there bombarding us because our planes were not there, enough of them out there to fight the Germans. Believe it or not, I flew more airplanes than every other pilot did in the United States Air Force. More airplanes of any other kind because I said there were transport bombers, 4-engine bombers, twin-engine bombers, all the fighter planes they had. I flew every single one of them. And I loved it. I never turned anything down.
So were there any planes you didn't fly during the war?
And I did not fly? No, I can't think of any that I did not fly because I flew the big 4-engine B-20, B-17, the twin and the B-25s, the A-20s, and even the P-38, the twin-engine fighter. I had a couple of crashes that my fault. Once I was landing an airplane, it kept going down the runway all the way to the end. The brakes wouldn't apply properly. I got down to the end of the runway and the thing ended up nose down into the ground. I had to sit there, so finally it fell all the way back like that, real easy. A couple of things like that, and some other things, a mistake I might make in flying, not putting twin engine on, I only put one engine on and the airplane wouldn't fly properly under one engine. So as a test pilot, I was testing primarily, but luckily I never ended up in a hospital from an accident that happened. I just kept on flying. In Europe, we went to airfields that the Germans had given up because we chased them out of there. We were first right in France, Normandy, France, then southern part of France. Then finally, believe it or not, into Paris. I was stationed in Paris for about 3 months as a pilot to other places. And from pilots, they said, "Sir, we've got to follow the Germans. The Germans are going back into Germany, and we're coming in now. So what am I going to do this now? You got to go to Belgium." Belgium? That's closer to Germany. Well, sir, you got to go to Belgium. So I had to be in Belgium for a few months. Then now what? I said, "Sir, we're transferring you to Germany." Germany, Hitler's still there. He is there, sir, but he's chasing it, getting closer to Russia. In Germany, all I could do is do more testing and come down. Some of our own pilots would take an airplane up and it wouldn't last. They had to make an emergency landing someplace, and I had to go there in the Jeep, find the airplane, see if I could get it started back, and fly it back into our normal places. They said, when German planes come over, you got to stay down there. You cannot, because you're not a fighter pilot. Well, we are the fighter pilots are here, and those pilots will be going after the Germans to try to shoot them all down. So finally they did. Some of our planes would get shot down too, and they come back in. I had to get them repaired and get them up again because this kept on lasting. In Germany, I only stayed again about another 6 months after the end of war to go back to the United States. I remember one time we were in a German airfield, and a couple of fellows came in our entrance area there. I found out they were Germans.
This is just after the war ended.
This war's ended, the war's over with, and we were still fighting airplanes, making things work right. And so what happened is the Germans said, "Sir, there's a nice airplane here." It was a twin-engine Ju-88, Junkers 88. And she said, we used to be able to fly that. You what, you flew that? Yeah, the war is over. I said, well, he said, "Sir, can we get to fly it again because the war's over?" I said, "Well, yeah, here's our field. Tell you what, you guys get into it, and I'll get into my bomber or fighter, and I'm going to fly next to you." So I said, okay, fine. So they got into the airplane, taxied it slowly to the end of the runway so they could take off. And they did. When they took off, They weren't flying straight down the runway, zoom, 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 like that down the runway. I said, good gosh, what's happening to these guys? Then finally they got it up in the air, and I followed them up in the air right next to them, and pretty soon they come down and crash about a few hundred feet away from the pilots where they took off. And they killed both of the pilots in that airplane. It was my fault for letting him do it. I should not have let them do, even though they said it. We used to fly that airplane. I don't know, but I had to see that. It was my fault for letting it fly it, and they crashed. We used to get souvenirs from the war from people come around and would collect them, either sell them to us or give them to us as a special favor to us because they liked what we were doing. So we do it. Take a few things home, put them in our bags, and get them home and properly. I remember once my wife said, what are we going to do with this? I said, I don't know, it's just a souvenir I picked up in Germany from the Germans. I'm bringing it home to you. Let's take care of it. And sometimes if we have any kids, we wanted them to see it too. I said, okay. They flew us to a port in France, and we had a nice ship. I said, where's the Queen Mary? We came over on the Queen Mary. Sir, we don't have, we just got a little twin-engine ship, freighter, to get you back to the United States. See, we boarded the ship in France and had to come from France all the way back to the United States. That means traveling at the rate of 4 miles an hour. 4 miles an hour to cross that Atlantic Ocean. I said, that's the only ship we got available for you guys right now. So all I can do is sit on board ship, play a lot of card games, have fun, sing songs, look out the window, see storms coming up there. Nothing else we could do. Took us a long time to get all the way back to the United States, which we did. Then one of the biggest things happened. We had to get back to the United States, and they had to give us an examination to send us home. So they gave me medical examinations, and everybody else did, and they all got home. And pretty soon one of the officers said, we got to speak to you. We got to speak to you what? We can't discharge you. Everybody else is getting discharged. Why can't? Sir, you have a medical problem. What's that? You have a medical problem because you have tuberculosis. You picked it up somewhere. I was in Germany. I maybe picked up tuberculosis there. I didn't know about it. Sir, I said, well, what'll it cost me to get out? I'll pay. If you can discharge me now, I'll pay you guys something. Sir, we cannot do that. You're going to die if you don't get the medical treatment properly. What? Yes, sir. You're going to die. So we're going to send you into a hospital. We've got a hospital that takes care of tuberculosis people like you have right now. And we're going to send you somebody to a big hospital in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Santa Fe, New Mexico? Yes, sir, we got a special hospital for people just like you. And you're going to find a lot of others in the same hospital suffering just as you are suffering right now. So all I can do is take my wife, put her in a car, drive down to Santa Fe, New Mexico, go to a hospital, and she rented a room where she stayed. I had to stay in the hospital all the time for about 6 months until they said, sir, we see that your tuberculosis is getting cured. You've been doing a lot of exams, a lot of physical exams, medicals and all that, and we are going to discharge you. Well, because I got discharged, I could get things from the Army and the Air Force because of my discharge capabilities. And not only that, one of the best things that happened to me is, sir, you've been a long time, Captain, we're going to raise you, give you a new rank. You are now a major. A major? Yes, sir, you are now a major, retired major from the United States Air Force. We love to have you be, and don't forget that, you can always visit other places as a major in the United States Air Force. After, when I got back home, I wanted to go to college and get another degree, which I found out to do it. So I went to Marquette University, started going there through their television school, and I did a lot of work in TV. And then a fellow said, "Will, you shouldn't go there. Why? You belong in the motion picture industry. We suggest you go to another college, some other place, and where you can get a degree in, and it would be in Southern California, out of Los Angeles, and get a degree in motion picture work." It was fine. So I went there. I got my degree, my first degree as a bachelor in the motion picture work. They said, "Well, why don't you stay down? You can get another degree." Well, what comes after bachelor? Master, I might get a master's degree. I stayed another whole year, worked in the University of Southern California, got a master's degree. Then I said, "Now what?" So you can get a doctorate. A doctorate? Yes. Oh boy. So I spent another 6 months working on a doctorate. And I said, "Why am I doing this? I should be in business. I don't need a doctorate degree in this business. I'm in the motion picture business, not a doctor. I already am a master in it." So I decided to come back home. I started my own business, a business called Riviera Productions in the southern part of California. And I started my own business with rented an office, got a lot of equipment, motion picture equipment, office equipment, and started doing work in the movie business totally as a independent motion picture writer, producer, director. My family started growing only when they moved back from Southern California into a special place, Redondo Beach. Started a family there, right near the ocean, and started a family. They kept growing, child after child after child, and my wife, believe it or not, I forget, what do you have, 9 children? 9 children? Yeah, there were 3 daughters and 6 sons. The name, Patty, Joanne, Ricky, Bob, Michael, Bill, Kathy, Stephen, and Mark. All the children, and my wife ended up, they were growing, we had to start sending them to school too, sending them to high school and to college. They'll finally say, "Oh," they started getting married, and we put up life after life after like that. And you've heard most of my life for the longest time.